Hi guys, Dr. Rob Barrington here with some more nutrition advice. I'd like to talk today a little bit about stress and the supplement L-tyrosine and how it can be used to alleviate stress and improve your mood. The first place to start in this discussion really is an understanding of what stress is. Now, stress is very subjective. One stressor that is applied to one person may not cause stress, but it may cause stress in another person. So there is a certain amount of subjectivity. The perception of stress is very important, but generally we can define stress as exposure to a particular stressor that causes the release of stress hormones in a particular person. Now, those stress hormones can include cortisol, and they can also include adrenaline and noradrenaline. We're really interested in adrenaline and noradrenaline when we're discussing tyrosine, because tyrosine is the precursor in the body to these hormones. Therefore, it can actually increase levels of these stress fighting hormones. Now, adrenaline and noradrenaline are released when we're exposed to a stressor. You have probably had a stressful exposure and you felt your heart rate increasing. If you'd have measured your blood pressure would have gone up. You feel more agitated, you feel more motivated, and this is the response of your body to the release of adrenaline and noradrenaline. Now, it's a good thing to release adrenaline and noradrenaline. They're there for a reason. They are motivational. They are chemicals that allow your brain to become motivated. They're chemicals that allow your body to adapt to physical exercise quickly. So they increase the oxidation of particular fuels in your muscle that allows you to run quickly if you need to. They also create an aggression in you that allows you to fight if you need to, which is why they're called the fight or flight chemicals. Now, therefore, they have a useful purpose. If you walk out in front of a bus, you see the bus coming, you jump out of the way, you get a jolt of adrenaline and noradrenaline because your body has realized there is a danger. It has flooded your system with these chemicals. That's a good thing. However, modern life tends to expose us chronically to stressors, and this causes a chronic release of these two hormones. And over time, many people become depleted. They get adrenal exhaustion because they are continually exposed to stress. The consumption of large amounts of coffee and tea and caffeine can also exacerbate the problem because these chemicals also cause the release of adrenaline and noradrenaline. So many people have adrenal exhaustion. Many people are stressed, and they have this stress chronically, and therefore they release too much adrenaline, too much noradrenaline, and gradually they become depleted. Now, this is problematic because these chemicals normally are required in small amounts to be able to provide motivation to you. They also have many other functions in the brain because they are neurotransmitters. And if you do become depleted in them, it can actually change your mental state. And one of the things it can induce is a slight depression. You become depressed, withdrawn, and this is one of the effects that is known of long-term stress. Now, L-tyrosine is a useful supplement because it is the precursor to adrenaline and noradrenaline. And when we take L-tyrosine in the diet, what happens is it passes into the brain through the large neutral amino acid transporter. It goes into neurons, and in the neurons there is an enzyme called tyrosine hydroxylase, and this enzyme converts the tyrosine to adrenaline and noradrenaline, and also dopamine as well as another resultant chemical of this process. And this is useful because L-tyrosine therefore can increase brain levels and body levels as well. It will do the same in body cells as well as brain cells. It can increase levels of adrenaline and noradrenaline. Now, if you are exposed to stress and you have a depletion of adrenaline, noradrenaline, and you take L-tyrosine, the L-tyrosine will be converted into adrenaline, noradrenaline, and dopamine. However, if you're not stressed and you take L-tyrosine, you will not get the same effects, and that's because you have to be depleted of adrenaline, noradrenaline for tyrosine to have a positive effect. So this is how tyrosine differs from stimulants such as coffee. Coffee will have a stimulatory effect on your mental and physical state irrespective of your what you're doing, irrespective of whether you're stressed or not, because it is a drug. L-tyrosine is a nutrient, and the way the L-tyrosine is converted into these chemicals in the brain through the tyrosine hydroxylase enzyme, that conversion only occurs once the noradrenaline, adrenaline or dopamine has been depleted, and therefore you can't really overstimulate yourself by taking tyrosine. Now, tyrosine is in the diet naturally. It's an amino acid that's found obviously in protein, in animal meats, and also it's found in vegetable proteins as well. And when we consume these proteins, we do take in the L-tyrosine. However, in order to be able to get the tyrosine into the brain, it needs to be taken in isolation. And that's because tyrosine competes with other amino acids to get into the brain. So if we take a mixed protein, let's say we eat some meat, we take in the L-tyrosine, less of the L-tyrosine will reach the brain because some of the other amino acids, such as L-tryptophan, and the branch chain amino acids will compete with the tyrosine to get into the brain, and therefore the L-tyrosine will raise plasma levels of, the protein will raise plasma levels of the L-tyrosine, but the brain levels won't rise to such a great extent. So when you take a supplement, you need to take it in isolation away from food. Good time to take it would be first thing in the morning on an empty stomach with a glass of water. The L-tyrosine would then pass into your plasma, and there would be no or little competition for it to pass into the brain. Therefore, it would have maximum effect to be able to resynthesize any depleted adrenaline, noradrenaline, or dopamine. This is also a supplement worth considering if you're an athlete for the same reason. Hard training is a stressor. If you train hard all the time, you are exposed to chronic stress, and therefore gradually you will deplete adrenaline and noradrenaline. And this is really what overtraining is. When you start to overtrain, you start to lose motivation, you start to become depressed, your mood state changes, and this is the depletion of adrenaline, dopamine and noradrenaline in the brain. And it's been shown that L-tyrosine can combat this to some extent. Now, most of the studies in the scientific literature have been performed on animals or soldiers. It's very easy to expose animals, rats and mice, for example, to stress, give them L-tyrosine, and then you can sacrifice the animals, measure the L-tyrosine levels in particular neurons. So that's a very something you couldn't do with humans, and that has been done on animal studies, and it has been shown that this L-tyrosine, it does get into the brain, and it does increase levels of adrenaline and noradrenaline, and it does combat stress in animals. In soldiers, it's very interesting because battlefield stress is common when you expose humans to continual enemy fire. They start to become depleted in neurotransmitters, and they develop something called battlefield stress. And L-tyrosine has been shown to prevent that. And that stress is obviously far more stressful. Those stresses are far more stressful than what we experience maybe in daily life. But the process is the same. A continual stress causes the depletion of these neurotransmitters, and L-tyrosine is able to replenish them. So if you feel that perhaps you are exposed to stress regularly, if you're an athlete that trains hard, I would consider investigating L-tyrosine as a supplement that may help you. It's been shown to be safe. The dosages that have been used in studies generally have been related to body weight, and you could work that out yourself if you go and have a look at the studies. But as a general rule, 1 to 2 grams of tyrosine has been shown to raise plasma levels when it's taken in isolation, and that will therefore increase brain levels of tyrosine, and therefore if you're depleted those neurotransmitters, that will help replete your levels, and it should help combat stress. Of course, there's a caveat as always. This is not a magic bullet. This is something, it's a supplement. It's called a supplement for a reason, because you have to supplement a healthy diet. If you want to combat stress, because you feel that you're exposed to lots of stress, you want to combat that stress, do not turn to L-tyrosine as your first port of call. Your first port of call should be making sure you get adequate rest, making sure you get adequate sleep, and making sure you have a high quality diet. And the same counts for athletes. Taking L-tyrosine will not stop overtraining on its own. You need to make sure that you are resting long enough periods between training. You need to make sure you're having enough sleep. You need to make sure you're taking enough protein. You need to make sure you have adequate nutrition and a high quality diet. If on top of all that you add L-tyrosine, you will have a greater effect than if you didn't take the L-tyrosine. But expecting L-tyrosine to cause miracles won't happen. It won't combat stress on its own. Combating stress, obviously the best way to do that is to avoid as much stress as you can. The avoidance technique, always the best technique. If you can't avoid the stress, make sure you get more rest, make sure you get more sleep, make sure you have a particularly high quality diet to make sure you have all the nutrients you require. And then if you feel on top of that you're still stressed, it would be worth considering an L-tyrosine supplement, 1 to 2 grams taken on an empty stomach first thing in the morning with a glass of water.